currently 6 degrees with a feels like of -7 degrees. What's up guys, Nate here. Today I thought it was only appropriate that we do a Deuce and a Half intro because today we're going to be talking about the Deuce and a Half. Now, I was supposed to be at school today, but as you can see, it is about, I think, 6 degrees out with a -7 wind chill. So school got closed today, which is sweet. So I'm going to do a video today on what kind of mods have we done to the Deuce and a Half. I don't like to say mods because I feel like performance mods, you know. But, you know, what kind of things we've had done to the Deuce and a Half. But, so, first of all, I would like to apologize that I am in the garage doing this video because, as you can see, it's a -7 wind chill outside, and the garage downtown where the Deuce and a Half is does not have heat. So, if that's alright with you guys, I'm not going to stand out there because I really don't need to actually be with the truck to do this video. So, I'm just going to do it here in the garage where it's like 60 degrees, so that'll be a little bit better. Alright, so let's get into it. So I'm pretty much just going to be talking about, you know, what kind of mods we've done to the Deuce and a Half, you know, what we've had done to it since day one when we purchased it to the current time, and maybe what I'm planning on doing in the future. Excuse me. But first thing off the bat is that we purchased it through Eastern Surplus. You know, they sell a bunch of military vehicles and that kind of stuff. And when we first purchased it, we had it shipped out to them from the owner, and we had them put on the super single tires with the MRAP wheels. Excuse me. Hope I'm not getting something, but when we had them put the super singles on, we also had them put on the air assist steering because, you know, we had a Deuce and a Half before with the regular dualies on the back, and it's not that much fun to steer, especially probably with the super singles on it. So we decided to make the executive decision to go with air assist steering. So, and that really does help. You know, any of you guys maybe looking at air assist steering, it's absolutely amazing. It's night and day difference. So once we got it back from there, when we actually got it here, we found out that the fuel injector pump had a very small drip coming off of it, like maybe probably once every time you parked it in the driveway, you get a drip. And my dad, being my dad, decided to have it looked at. So that's when we brought it down to that friend of a friend shop where they basically had the truck for 6 months when they thought they would have it for 2 weeks, and ended up convincing him to replace all the fluids in the truck and do a bunch of maintenance, which ended up creating every single thing on the truck to leak. So we got the truck back in 6 months, and the fuel injector pump was now not just dripping fluid, it was pouring out fluid. And I am not exaggerating that. There were puddles under the truck of just everything from the fuel injector pump that they were supposed to rebuild, everything from the front end to the transmission to the transfer case. I mean, every single thing that they touched were now pouring out fluid. And when I actually got under the truck, I found out that instead of using the proper seals, they just basically put a bunch of bright blue silicone on everything. So around all the drain plugs and everything, there's just a bunch of blue goop everywhere. So that's when we brought it down to, I guess it's the second shop, because the first shop was Eastern Surplus. So our second shop, which they were supposed to rebuild the fuel injector pump and as well as redo the all the leaks and everything, fix all that. But also this first shop that we brought it down to that hacked everything up, they were supposed to rebuild the transmission. Well, not the transmission, but they were supposed to put a new clutch in it, which they did not do. The guy that actually worked there for the owner that we talked to was telling the owner, you know, that he was doing stuff, you know, like he said he put a new clutch in the truck and he did all this and he said he did this, but he would never do any of it. So we found out that he never put a new clutch in it. He basically just sprayed it down with some carb cleaner and made it look like it was new. But as soon as we got in the truck, we could tell it wasn't. So, you know, he was supposed to do a whole bunch of stuff. And also when he put the fuel injector pump back in, he didn't have it clocked right, and it was idling really poorly. It sounded like it had a huge cam in it. So, yeah, the second shop that we brought it to fixed all that. They fixed all the leaks, fixed the... we didn't have them touch the transmission. That's our transmission shop that we brought that to. But we had them fix all the leaks, and they found out that the fuel injector pump issue was that he never tightened the hose clamps down for it. So all the high-pressure lines that were going to it were loose, and therefore spraying fluid everywhere. So I don't even think that he rebuilt the fuel injector pump, because today, as it sits right now, we still have that little drip, which makes me so mad, because that's what we spent basically probably a year now trying to fix, and nobody fixed that yet. But then the third shop that we brought it down to was the transmission shop, which was actually the same place that I brought my Escort and had a very poor experience. But yeah, they redid the transmission, went through that, and the transfer case as well. Because another thing with the transfer case is he was supposed to go through that, and that's the other thing I was leaking, because he put the wrong seal on. And it's a metal gasket seal, and when we got the truck back, we were driving it, and you could hear, it sounded like, I really don't know how to explain it, but imagine you have a drive shaft, and you hung, like, you just kind of wrapped chains around it loosely, and you can hear those chains rattling. That's exactly what it sounded like. I was worried that it was the transmission, because that guy had just gone through it, and we didn't know what was going on. And it turns out he put the wrong metal gasket on for the transfer case, which in return was rubbing on stuff inside, which luckily it didn't cause any damage, I guess. Just the seal was the wrong one, so they replaced that, and that went away. So yeah, then he rebuilt the transmission, the transfer case, and also put a new clutch in it. And it is so much easier going into second gear now. I don't know if I told you guys, but it was like a bitch to get it in the second gear. And then that's pretty much up to date right now, which everything is fixed on it pretty much, except for the small drip on the fuel injector pump. And with that being said, I think that pretty much concludes everything that we've had done to it this far. Now let's go ahead and talk about what I want to do in the future. There's not really a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to actually do to the truck. You know, it's pretty much going to stay the same, but there's some little things that, you know, I'd like to tweak. The number one thing is the seals on the interior for the cab. From the factory, you know, these things are horrible. They weren't meant to be airtight by any means. And one thing that's a huge problem is that there's a bunch of holes all over the cab, and they're not rust holes, but they're holes, you know, for like options for the truck, you know, depending on what it was used for in the military. So there's a bunch of open holes in the cab everywhere that, you know, we'd like to plug up. And then also put new window seals, door seals, all that stuff on, because in the winter, the heater in that truck works great. I mean, it's a diesel. I think it's not a diesel heater. It's a you know, regular car heater with like the radiator in it that blows the air through. But that works great. Puts out amazing heat. But the problem is with all of the air that you have escaping from the cab, it pretty much doesn't hold any heat in. So we'd like to put different seals on the doors, the windows, and plug up a bunch of holes. So that's one thing I'd like to do. The other thing is that we did take the gumballs off. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but they kind of got in the way, I guess you could say, when we tried to back into a You-Do-It car wash and found out that the garage door opening is 9 foot tall, which is perfect for the gumballs, but the gutter is about 9 foot or 8'5". So that caught the top of the gumballs and cracked them off. So we took those off when we got back home, and yeah, so those aren't there, which I kind of like them without it. We were debating whether to keep them on or not, but I guess that finalized the decision. Another thing that I like to do, and this is pretty small, it actually kind of has to do with the gumballs, or at least the wiring for it, is if you have the tonneau cover on the back of the truck, what you'll notice is that it is incredibly dark back there. So even if you're in there during the day, you know, and you're trying to load lumber up in the back, it's pretty dark in there. But especially at night, because if you're, you know, at the Home Depot parking lot, for instance, you know, because we do use it as a work truck, and you're out there at night, which we would usually go, and you're trying to load a bunch of lumber or something up in the back of the truck, and you have the tonneau cover on, it's pitch black back there. I mean, you can't even see your own hand in front of your face if you're trying to see it. So I like to put a couple of little LED cube lights in the back of the bed there, you know, kind of like the off-roading lights, and we could use the wiring for the gumball lights, which go basically right behind the cab, so we could just run those in the bed. And the nice thing about that is there's actually a pull-out switch on the dashboard for the gumball lights, so if we want to turn the lights on in the back of the bed, you just pull the switch out and you have light back there. So I like to do that. You know, I think it's just something that, you know, would help us out a little bit, but kind of have to convince Dad for that. They're not expensive at all, maybe $40. So yeah, I mean, all the wiring's already there and the switch is already there, so the hard part's pretty much done, and that's good. But I think other than that, I think things for the Deuce and a half are going to stay pretty much the same. You know, no suspension stuff or anything like that, no different wheels or tires or interior. I mean, it's a work truck, to be honest, and it's pretty much almost perfect the way it is. Just those couple little things we'd like to tweak, and also fix that drip on the fuel injector pump. Maybe, I don't even know. Dad wants to get it fixed. I'm just saying, you know what? I think this is a good example of just leave it. It doesn't bother anybody, and just leave it alone. So, anyway, I think that's pretty much it for what we've had done to the Deuce and a half and what we'd like to do to the Deuce and a half. Fortunately, not a pretty big list, but just something to kind of keep the channel going, because I know you guys really want to see a bunch of Deuce and a half stuff, but I'm going to try to pop up some ideas in my brain about what kind of videos to make on them. If you have any suggestions for videos on the Deuce and a half, you know, like what you'd like to see, definitely go ahead and leave me a comment on what you'd like to see, and I will definitely go ahead and make it. I was thinking maybe kind of engine review, and also since it's cold out, I'd like to get a cold start video in, because my last video really wasn't a cold start. So anyway, I think that's going to do it, so make sure that you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like and comment a suggestion for a future video, and thanks guys, and have a great day.